Friday, March 11, 2011, at the hospital where I worked, the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami struck the northeast part of Japan. 3 years and 7 months since the disaster happened, but reality is that we are still struggling to recover. Today, I'm here to speak to you about resilience, one of TEDxTaipei themes for this year, and the way in which we can all move on from the tremendous feeling of helplessness that was thrust upon us that day. And I would like to acknowledge the great support and donation for Japan from you, the Taiwanese people. Thank you very much. 谢谢。I worked and lived in Minami Sanriku town and worked at Shizugawa Public Hospital in the coastal town of Minami Sanriku, which is enclosed by the Pacific Ocean. The small town is northeast of Miyagi Prefecture. The town with population of 18,000 and is famous for fishing and sightseeing. It faces to the East Bay, so the sunrise is very beautiful. Shizugawa Public Hospital was the only inpatient facilities in Minami Sanriku town, and the hospital stood only 400 meters from the shore. Before the disaster, I was working as a physician practicing regional medical care. I wanted to support elderly patients in medically underprivileged area. My motto as a doctor was to cure sometimes, to relieve often, and to comfort always. At 2:46 p.m. in March 11, 2011, when I finished the routine round and returned to the doctor's office on the second floor of the hospital, the earthquake shook the building. The earth trembled up and down with a rumbling noise. Then a big swing lasted for a few minutes. Time stood still, and the shaking felt as though it was never going to end. After the earthquake stopped, immediately I checked patients, our staffs, and nobody was injured. Electric power was down soon after the earthquake, and the emergency electric power came online. Next, we began transporting the patient to the conference room on the 5th floor. But most of patients were elderly, so many of them were bedridden or needed assistance to walk. Most of them could not evacuate by themselves to the higher floor. Moreover, the elevators stopped working because of the earthquake. So we could only transport them one by putting them on wheelchairs and stretchers or by carrying them on our backs. At 3:28 p.m., the tsunami reached the hospital. The emergency generator on the first floor went down and all the lights blacked out. This photo was taken from the 5th floor at that time.
もう諦めた。
俺も諦めた。
冷めだ。
どうしようもねえよもう。
嘘、2階どこじゃねえじゃんこれ。2階どうなっちゃうの。やば。2階終わりだ。終わり。
ザンダーとか持ってくるのに。
ああ、本当だ。
This is what happened in front of my eyes. Every part of the town I was living in was covered by the muddy tsunami water. The muddy water continued to rise almost to the ceiling of the 4th floor. The maximum height of tsunami was 15 meters. Many patients in the lower levels who could not evacuate, who could who could not evacuate, and hospital staffs who were trying to evacuate them were all swept away by the tsunami. I thought I may die. Then I thought my family. So I put my margin on my finger, hoping that my family would be able to find me even if I died. Some nurses near me were helping each other to write the names on their arms with permanent markers. In about 30 minutes, the first wave slightly pulled back. So I decided to go downstairs with few staff members to check for survivors on the fourth floor. Although the following big tsunami may have come, we rescued and transported about 10 still alive patients on the fourth floor. But I was angry with myself for not being able to save more lives. Even if death was inevitable ahead of me, I wanted to live as a doctor without regret. What gave me my courage and strength? It was not that I was particularly brave, but the very existence of the patients prevented me from collapsing psychologically. The fact there were people who needed my help enabled me to hold on. That day was very cold, and it snowed from the evening. In darkness night, patients were trembling with the fear of death and coldness. Nobody talked. All I could do was squat down along with my patients and stroke their shoulders and bodies gently. Under our feet, tsunami repeatedly came and went all night. There were in total about 230 people, including 43 patients, evacuated from the surrounding area, and the hospital staffs evacuated to the 5th floor of the hospital. There was no medical equipment, no oxygen supply, no food, and no electricity at the conference room of the 5th floor. Most of what I could do was stay close to my patients. To my regret, inpatient wards were only 3rd and 4th floor, and the emergency drill manual was designed to evacuate only up to the 3rd floor or higher on the assumption of a 6-meter high tsunami. Next day, being stuck in the hospital, around 2 p.m., the rescue helicopter from Japan Self-Defense Forces came flying towards the hospital and landed on the roof skillfully. Names, conditions, treatment, seriousness, and other patient information that I knew were written in temporary triage tags, which were made from cardboard and taped directly to the body of all transferring patients. On third day from the tsunami's arrival, I got on the boat, the last helicopter, and was taken to Ishinomaki Red Cross Hospital. Then I handed over the patient information to the doctors who came to help in the disaster area. Then I borrowed a car from my doctor friend and drove to Sendai. For 3 days, we had no oxygen supply, electricity, water, no food at Shizugawa Public Hospital. That's fatal. We had survived for 3 days, and we watched 7 patients die before the helicopter's rescue. What was I able to do? A lot of people died. Lives that we could save are maybe insignificant comparing to the lives that we have lost. I felt even survivor's guilt. Many of us may carry shame of survivor, feeling the weight of sorrows on our shoulders. But looking back, despite torn by sorrows and sufferings, I could keep my motto to my heart, which is to cure sometimes, to live often, and to comfort always. Just 10 days after the disaster, my wife Yuki had a baby boy. My wife and 3-year-old daughter had lived with me in the apartment behind the hospital, but they had moved from Minami Sanriku town to Sendai city to prepare for delivery just 10 days before the earthquake. We named him Ray, which means brightness in English like sun ray, and wisdom in Japanese. My first feeling was amazement. After seeing my healthy son born, I was moved and heartened. A new life in such a disaster situation made me to decide to go back to Minami Sanriku town again to find what I can do for my patients and my fellows. I went back to town 9 days after the tsunami. Medical facilities in Minami Sanriku town were all destroyed and washed away. On the maximum time, there were 10,000 refugees in over 45 shelters in Minami Sanriku. We established the medical headquarters at the largest shelter in Bayside Arena with cooperation by support organizations. Many medical support teams came from various places. They not only supported me professionally, but also emotionally. We medical headquarters and local fellows connected tightly, served as a base point for medical support team to work more effectively. On April 28, only 1 month after the earthquake, I was selected by Time magazine to be one of the most influential 100 people of the world in 2011. It's a great honor for me to be chosen, but rather than my achievement, I believe that this is a recognition given to all the victims of the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami for their unspeakable sufferings and ongoing struggle. Now I live as a narrator of the disaster like today, and I also live as a doctor, a medical researcher at Tohoku University Graduate School of Medicine. For example, I reported in my research articles the notable increase of hemorrhagic ulcer in stomach or duodenum triggered by stress after the Great East Japan earthquake. From 7 major hospitals at Miyagi Prefecture in the middle of the stricken area, we retrospectively collected clinical data and endoscopic findings of the patients with peptic ulcer during the 3 months after the earthquake and compared with those during the same period of the previous year. The occurrence of total number of peptic ulcers in stomach and duodenum was increased by 1.5 times after the earthquake, and especially hemorrhagic ulcers, which were increased by 2.2 times intensively during 1 month after the earthquake. Additionally, these increasing patients were mainly came from the refugee shelters, so they were possibly induced by psychologically and environmental stress after a large-scale disaster. I took this photo on the roof of the hospital on March 12, 2011. Then, at the same place, I took another photo 3 years later. Is this what you call reconstruction? No, it's not our town, but only wilderness. Reconstruction is not about going back to the previous days. Reconstruction can be achieved when we are able to pass down what we have learned from our agony and grief, as if passing on a relay button. The road for reconstruction is long. It may take 10 or 20 years. Not only myself, but also many others in Japan are fighting in this struggle, despite they too are disaster victims. I'm proud of Japan, and we will recover with extraordinary resilience. New Japan in the future should be stronger. Away from Japan, By sharing the experiences of this suffering to all, we can approach to solution together in many ways and change this world. As shown in the 2011 disaster, we are sometimes forced into difficulties, not of our own volition, but I think it is worthwhile to try your best to live in a way and that you can feel proud of even under a difficult situation. I believe such a thought can enhance the value of your life and can eventually lead to changes in your circumstances. One day, light will surely return to your lives. So let's move on together. Let's live with hope. Thank you for listening to my speech. My son, Lei, 3.5 years old, always encourages me. Watching him grow gives me energy, like receiving the warmth of sun rays shining through the clouds. We, living in the present, let's try to do what we can for children's smile. This is hope for tomorrow. Thank you.